And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking what was a Baku bore, if I'm honest, but in spite of being a slight Baku bore. Now, I say boring because when we look at qualifying, it looked absolutely amazing. And when the race came, it was anything but, apart from the first couple of laps. But still, Max Verstappen won what was a very interesting weekend and what, as our thumbnail says, is massive for the championship. So, well done, Max Verstappen, Grand Slam aficionado. Pole position, 100% laps led, fastest lap and a race win. Both Red Bull and Max Verstappen should be very proud of themselves. They were at one with the track in Azerbaijan, known as Baku. But other things, other than Max Verstappen, yeah, let's be honest, he didn't do too bad, did he? He didn't do too bad at all. And this was Max Verstappen's grandma with tears. I mean, it was absolutely lovely to see a proud grandma. There's nothing nicer than a proud grandma, isn't it? It's brilliant. It was actually really nice to see. I'm sure it wound a few people up. So here was your top three, though. It was Max Verstappen in first. Second was George Russell. Third was, yeah, believe it or not, Carlos Sainz. He did make the podium. It was brilliant. Fourth, Kimi Antonelli. Fifth, Liam Lawson. Sixth, Yuki Tsunoda. Seventh, Lando Norris. Eighth, Lewis Hamilton from 12th, not bad. Ninth, Charles Leclerc. They should have swapped around, but they didn't. Lewis kind of got it wrong at the last minute. Albeit, to be fair, Isaac Hadjar was like 2 seconds behind him, so getting it wrong on that straight, he could have gone from 8th to 10th. But there we go. I digress. So, these are, well, this is the results of the drivers, the full results. We've done the top 10, Isaac Hadjar, but from 10th down to 20th, we've got Gabriel Bortoleto in 11th, Oliver Bearman in 12th, Alexander Albon in 13th, 14th, Esteban Ocon, 15th, Fernando Alonso, 16th, Nico Hulkenberg in the stake of one team, 17th, it's our friend Lance, 18th, Pierre Gasly, 19th, Franco Colapinto, but the big surprise, the man that doesn't make any mistakes, the Iceman from Australia, Oscar Piastri, and let's be fair, what was probably his worst ever weekend. And this is why. Let's get a quick clip. This was lap 1. So he got a jump start. You know, he would have had a 5-second penalty for it. On his jump start, he stopped and then he went again. So at this point, he's pretty much at the back of the field. Obviously panicking because, you know, Lando Norris started 7th. Goodness me. Lando Norris is in the McLaren. Surely he can get on the podium. Didn't know, did he? More on that in a bit. But this was Oscar Piastri.
He is 20th at this point.
Getting it wrong.
Looks to the outside. It's just slippery out there.
Boom.
Oh, no.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely shameful. In the wall. It was. I don't know what happened. I mean, as he's going along here, he's on the outside of the corner, and it just seems he's on the outside there, and he's just on the outside. And at this point, that's it. There's nothing more he can do. He just locks up, and it's almost at this point he knows he's going to hit the wall. Nothing he can do. He tries his best. He's completely understeering into it, and out Oscar Piastri goes from Baku. He must have been really upset. Look, here we go. Ready? Meow. I just look so terrible and so amateurish, isn't it? I mean, I imagine it's easily done. But Oscar, we feel for you. We really do. So, Andrea Stella saying after the race, and I think this is quite significant and why it's massive for our championship. We did a video not long ago about it's not over for Max Verstappen, in spite of some of the people singing. We did mention the fat lady's warming up, but she's only warming up. So Andrea Stella came out and said, I keep saying that Red Bull are a threat to the championship. They've scored pole position and victories over the last 2 events. I said it yesterday and can confirm it even more today. It's a 3-headed fight for the Drivers' Championship. And yes, Max is now, 69 points behind the championship leader? That's not much at all. That's dangerous, I think, if you're McLaren. But congratulations. A first podium with the Williams team. Did it before Lewis Hamilton. That seems to be a big thing a lot of people are saying, and I can understand. Because I guess, what was it? I mean, if you had your money on either Sainz or Lewis getting a first podium in their respective teams, it probably would have been Lewis Hamilton, let's be honest. But absolutely, congratulations to Carlos Sainz. Chef's kiss. Absolutely amazing. This was him on the radio saying, Vamos, best podium in my career. You cannot imagine how this tastes. Thank you so much. This is my first smooth operation in Williams, and not the last. So, yes, he's had a bumpy ride in Williams compared to Alex Albon, but Baku was a bumpy ride for Alex Albon, wasn't it? And not Carlos Sainz. So when it counted, Carlos Sainz was there, very much so. And this is him sprinting. Oh, that was very loud, wasn't it? Sorry about that, definitely nearly. But this is Carlos Sainz. As you can see, he's look at that, he's doing a Terminator run. I mean, the T1000 will be happy, and yeah, that's such a lovely sight to see, isn't it? Carlos Sainz celebrating with what is a very, very happy, and deservedly so, Williams team after an epic qualifying performance and an epic race. He stayed second. He kept Max, I wouldn't say on his toes, but he was always there in that first stint. Max, I think, had it under control. And in terms for Max Verstappen, yeah, it probably was one of the easiest races this year to win for Max Verstappen, bar none. Because I think he in spite of him having Carlos under control, if any funny safety car things happen or Max made a mistake, I think Carlos, up at least in the first third of the race, was always there. And, you know, had that potential to be a bit menacing towards Max. Now, what's interesting, Carlos Sainz is the second F1 driver in history after Alain Prost to stand on the podium with, I can't even say both, with Troth, I don't know, but with McLaren, Ferrari and Williams. I mean, just let that sink in. Carlos Sainz and Alain Prost share the fact that they're the only people that have stood on the podium as a race driver for McLaren, Ferrari and Williams. That's for Motorsport, and that is an absolutely epic. Let's not also forget Liam Lawson, 5th place, a career best finish, and for a lot of it, it looked like he could get third. And sadly, he didn't. There were faster cars around him. He didn't do anything silly. I thought he was going to be really, really aggressive, you know, fight aggressively, then cost himself, kind of like he did against Perez in Mexico. Thank goodness that was not the case. Well done, Liam Lawson, your best race. And I tell you what, this is manna from heaven from Liam Lawson and Liam Lawson's fans. If he ever needed a really good race, now was the time to do it. Let this continue for Liam to save his Red Bull career. Let's talk about Ferrari, though, and what on earth happened. What happened to Ferrari? I mean, come on, 8th and 9th. Now, a lot of this would have been qualifying, getting it wrong with Lewis Hamilton on the strategy front, and Charles Leclerc didn't really help when you long dart it, yeet it straight into a wall. But still, what an absolutely disappointing weekend for Ferrari, who looked to have one of the fastest cars, at least in the practice and potentially qualifying. Now, Fred Vassar came out saying the pace was there this weekend. He said, quite rightly, on Friday, the pace was strong. Then on Saturday, we could not put things together. Today, we were stuck in traffic. We lost this weekend yesterday, not today. Yeah, you could say that for a lot of people. And he said we had the potential to make a better job, and absolutely they did. Now, you have to question, though. I mean, maybe these rule changes can't come soon enough, because in 2024, Lando Norris, for example, went almost from the back of the grid, finished it easily, in the top 5, passing easily. What has changed? I don't know if they've changed the length of the DRS zone. I don't think so. But it just seemed it was very hard for cars to follow each other again, which let's be honest, was a massive shame. And DRS sort of helped some people, sort of didn't. Unless you're McLaren, we'll definitely get into that. But that was a thing of their own making. So Sainz getting on the podium and Williams before Hamilton, Autosport says, wasn't on our 2025 bingo card, but yeah, absolutely it's not. So Yuki Tsunoda, he came out saying, thinking about both championship, both team and drivers for Max, there are a lot of opportunities to go inside and attack Liam. He's talking about it. But there's a lot more risk that McLaren overtake us, excuse me, and step up one more grid spot. So yeah, well done. I mean, Tsunoda didn't do too bad, but once again, he's in the second Red Bull seat. It's a massive question mark, really, on whether they can sort that second Red Bull seat. So here on the driver standings, at least in the top 10, coming out of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, going, I think, into Singapore's next. So Piastri leads on 324. Lando Norris pretty much, give or take, a race win behind Piastri. Then Verstappen, let's be honest, it is scary stuff. He is within 69 points of Piastri. In third, George Russell on 212. Charles Leclerc on 165. Lewis Hamilton on 121. Well on Kimi Antonelli. He zonked past with his really decent 4th place finish. Alexander Albon. In 9th, we have Hadjar. And in 10th, we have Nico Hülkenberg. Now, in terms of those Constructors' Championships, funnily enough, McLaren, they needed to, just have a normal weekend, which is absolutely the opposite of what they did. And they're on 623 points and 333 points. I mean, that's what, double Over double. That's Mercedes. And then Ferrari on 286 to Mercedes 290. Red Bull on 272. How close is that second place fight going to be for the rest of the year? The issue is with Red Bull Racing, a lot of them, they're going to have to rely on Max Verstappen, where both Mercedes and Ferrari on normal weekends, yeah, I'm including you, Kimmy, they can score decent points. So in the Williams on 101, I still can't see them being beaten by the Racing Bulls. But you never know. Who are in 6th on 72. In 7th, Aston Martin on 62 points. Could they get Racing Bulls? I think they're going to need one of those weekends. And Sauber again could as well if they have a decent weekend. Who are 8th on 55. I mean, they're within 7 points of Aston Martin. Then Haas on 44. And Alpine on 10th with 20 points. Probably going to stay there if I'm honest, which is kind of sad. But yeah, sadly. So, deep breath, people. Deep breath, because we're going to talk about something else now. And what we are going to talk about is McLaren. We're going to talk about McLaren throwing away the chance to win the Constructors' Championship in Azerbaijan. Both drivers doing their best to sabotage their own championships and give that little bit of light to Max Verstappen. What on earth happened to McLaren today and yesterday? Well, it says here, and I think this is really significant, for the first time since Las Vegas 2023. So, you know, not shy of 2 years ago, no McLaren managed to finish in the top 6. In that race, one of the two cars also suffered an accident. I think it was Lando Norris, wasn't it? Went straight off. But for the first time, let that sink in, for the first time since Las Vegas 2023, no McLaren managed to finish in the top 6. Absolutely epic. Clowns? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, well, they're pit lane, because their pit stops are certainly certainly clown featured. Not only this race, but we're going to look at some of the other races in the past where they weren't particularly very good. But let's talk about Oscar Piastri, shall we? And this person sums it up very nicely here on Twitter. First Sports F1. Crash in qualifying, jump start and crash in the race. What kind of voodoo was done on Oscar Piastri? Disappointing night for the McLaren driver. Spoiled all the advantages he gained on Lando Norris. And this is obviously,
looks to the outside. It's just slippery out there.
Yeah, there's Oscar going in again. I mean, look at that. He just like, gets offline. Why did he do it? Part of me thinks it was a bit desperate. He jumped the start, went right to the back pretty much, and it was like, oh my gosh, I need to make up time. And I think he went too far too soon. Unlike, for example, the accident he did in the wet when he spun off in Australia, which is the wet that, you know. This was, I think, down to experience and maybe the pressure getting to him a little bit, at least in the moment, in spite of how much of an Iceman compared to Lando Norris we think he is. And yeah, he just goes wide here. And at that point, I mean, look, it was almost, you know, even before then, let's see. Here we go. And he goes, and at this point here, he becomes a passenger. I mean, you saw that wheel lock up. He's understeering, and he knows, as Martin Brundle says, straight to the scene of the accident goes Oscar Piastri. You'll see him absolutely yeet it into the wall. Everyone's going straight, and it's almost like he's following a different sat-nav route. Poor Oscar. Here is, I mean, there's poor Oscar there. Here is, I think, from a fan perspective, another view of the crash, which is quite interesting. Oh! Straight in. I mean, you can see him locking up there. It's even better. It's almost. That is really, really. That's so loud. But yeah, you can see him. Yeah, you can see him like here. Yeet it into the wall. Are you ready? As we go there. He comes. He's near the back. There he is. Look, you can see him. He comes in too hot. He just does, doesn't he? There's nothing he can do. And as Martin Brundle says, as I mentioned, straight to the scene of the accident. Now let's talk. We mentioned the pit stops. Let's talk about McLaren's pit stops, shall we? Because they were an absolute sham. What on earth was going on with McLaren in their pit stops? 4.1 seconds. And the reason why this is so bad, it's double what McLaren, at least 2 seconds. You know what McLaren did. That 2 seconds was pivotal between Lando Norris finishing 7th and Lando Norris finishing 5th. Because he came out exactly 2 seconds behind the two drivers in front. So it absolutely scuppered any chance that Lando Norris had of finishing at least in the top 5, doing a bit more damage to Oscar Piastri and gaining McLaren a few more points in the Constructors. embarrassing, wasn't, you know, I mean, Lando says here, what is it? Lando, what do you make of the slow stops in Monza and now here in Baku? And he said, honestly, twice in 2 races, doesn't feel like bad luck anymore. It's frustrating when it's always my side having the issues, while the other garage seems to run a bit smoother. Yeah, I mean, you say that, but it's the same people doing the pit stops, so they're not doing it on purpose. But it does seem to be the pressure's getting to McLaren, even though they're fighting realistically amongst themselves for both the drivers and the constructors' championship. And the reason why I say this, when you look at their ridiculous pit stops, I mean, Silverstone 4.64 seconds, not good at all. 3.57 seconds for Spa, 4.83 seconds for Zandvoort, 5.87 seconds for Monza, and then 4.1 seconds for Baku. What is going on here, McLaren? It is absolutely not good enough. For the team that does have, let's be fair, I think, was it 23? The world record on pit stop in Qatar, which is still held by McLaren, I believe. What are you doing? I mean, it's like double the time. I remember Williams a few years back being absolutely ridiculously bad on the pit stops, and they purposely then just slowed their pit stops down. So it didn't hit the 2-second mark. It was more like a late 2, like an early 3-second, but they became consistent and they were always good. Just slow it down, and I don't know what is going on here. I mean, I know accidents can happen, but they are looking, in spite of probably being Constructors' Champions at the next race, the worst people at their pit stops. It's not good at all. Look. And also, we've still got to talk about Lando Norris, because not only did he absolutely choke in qualifying, even though he said he didn't, he did everything he could do. Yeah, you did everything you could do, you know, which was not good enough, if that's what you're saying. He froze, my guy hasn't moved for 40 minutes. That's how a lot of people described the restart. So what happened is, at the start, obviously Piastri ended up in the wall. We restarted. And look at this. Look at the gap between these two. And Lando Norris is asleep. And this allowed Charles Leclerc to get by him. And that very thing here ruined his whole race. Because as I mentioned, with McLaren's straight line speed, I believe we'll get into the data in a bit, but not being particularly very good, let's be fair, it completely ruined his race. And any chance that Lando Norris did have of a better result. We know those Ferraris are really fast in this straight line. Charles Leclerc did a good job. It was just a bit embarrassing, wasn't it, for if you're a Lando Norris or one of his fans, it was just not good enough. That race start, and you can't turn around and go, no, the Ferrari was just faster. Lando, you were asleep. I mean, he was absolutely. This is Lando speaking with the media after finishing P7. Let's see what he has to say.
For you in the end today, I think many of us maybe thought that the faster cars, or the theoretically faster cars, might make up a few more spaces. I mean, how was it for you out there, bearing that in mind?
Yeah, just too difficult to follow and overtake, so...
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It was difficult to overtake and follow. The restart... I'm sorry, but that restart did not help, did it?
Didn't really matter how quick the car was. I think the car was good, but just too difficult to follow and overtake, and couldn't really do anything with strategy, so no, I don't think we could have done anything more today.
Yes, you could have done, Lando, really. I mean, as in, like, you know... Don't be asleep at the restart. McLaren with the slow stops. You've kind of scuppered it in qualifying.
I think 6 points he's made up on your teammate. Obviously, Oscar going out on the first lap, and with the slow stop out there as well.
I mean, he's like looking away. He's not even looking at them. He's not even looking at these. He knows. So why is he trying to spin some politician's House of Commons-esque answer? I just don't get it.
Do you kind of see this as maybe a bit of a missed opportunity, or is it one of those?
You said that yesterday. I'm going to say the same answer. So.
Oh, he's annoyed.
I did everything I can. The opportunities.
No, you didn't.
Today, I maximize every single weekend like I can, you know. So it's not a missed opportunity. Every
yes, it is.
Race is an opportunity, and
true.
Today we just weren't good enough, and
he wasn't good enough. And to be fair, nor McLaren's pit stops.
Made too many mistakes yesterday. So.
Yeah. I like Lando Norris. I want him very much to win that championship and prove all the doubters wrong, because he seems to have more doubters than Oscar Piastri. The problem is, weekends like this absolutely fuel his doubters. Let's not forget, yes, Piastri did make that massive mistake, but then Norris has been making more mistakes this year, which is one of the reasons, not the only reason, because of that engine issue in Canada, one of the reasons why he's behind Piastri. You remember Canada, for example, when he legit had a chance to beat Piastri. Yes, he wasn't going to win the race, but he was going to at least beat him, and he went out of the race, which was not going to help anyone. So, Lando. So, yeah, it says here, the mistake in the pits cost Norris P5. But let's not kid ourselves. Piastri had a terrible weekend, and Norris failed to capitalise, firstly in the qualifying, and today at the race too. Terrible weekend for both championship contenders. Couldn't have said it better. Could not have said it better myself. Oscar, and what's interesting, Oscar admitted that he was to blame for his messy weekend in Baku, but said there was a silver lining after crashing out on that first lap. Here we go. So, let's have a look then at the data. What does the data tell us from the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix that Max Verstappen won? George Russell finished second, which was amazing for him. Really good. And Carlos Sainz, yes, Carlos Sainz finished third. Lando Norris was seventh. Oscar Piastri had that accident, remember? Both the Ferraris didn't do too well. Lando couldn't pass anyone either. Yeah, so let's have a look. So this was the race pace. As you can see here, Verstappen, between the 140, really consistent. To be fair, he had the clean air. He was out in the lead. He wasn't really under any pressure. He could pretty much do what he wanted. And Russell just a smidge faster than Carlos Sainz, if I'm honest. And Lawson, let's be fair, Lawson really consistent. One of the more inconsistent ones, not Lando Norris. I mean, he was fairly up there as well. He was fast. Couldn't get past Tsunoda though. It's Lewis Hamilton. Look at that. I mean, compared to his teammate, really bizarrely inconsistent. But that could be also because he went really long on, I believe it was, I think it was it the hard? I've forgotten whether we started on the hard or the mediums. I'll have to have a look at that in a bit. But yeah, but as you can see here, Verstappen absolutely consistent. So what did Hamilton? Yeah, he started on the hard. So Hamilton started on the hard. So that kind of maybe explains compared to Leclerc, who I think was on the mediums. Let me hope he was now, because it's going to completely ruin. But yeah, Leclerc was in used mediums, so Hamilton was in new hards, which kind of explains both the difference of their race pace. Verstappen started on the hard. I mean, he was really impressive. He could have gone all day. Pirelli, I think, bought tyres that were too good for Baku, which is maybe why we had a Baku bore rather than an absolute, what we expected. So Verstappen went all the way to lap 40, pitted, no one, and may I mention, no one went on the softs. And there was all this promise of rain. Now, call me a cynic, but I can't help but feel about this promise of rain that they only do that to make you turn off. Because, I can understand why people were thinking, this is really boring, I'd rather do something else. Oh, touring cars is on the other side, let's watch that. And then turn the channel. But they were like, no, there's going to be rain, They kept talking about this rain that never, ever came. And part of me wonders, is that the reason? Is that the reason why people, why they were saying that, so people would tune in to the end of the race? Anyway, both Verstappen and Russell were very similar on their strategy. Hard to lap 39.40, pitting onto what was used mediums. Sainz used mediums all the way till 27. So, Russell, he used, obviously, that to great effect with the overcut, and he came out, I think, just ahead of Carlos Sainz, which was really good strategy from Mercedes. I'm not saying they screwed Antonelli, but yeah, Antonelli, he pitted on lap 18, which is really early on those used mediums, and they went from lap 18 to lap 51 on the hards. Now Tsunoda, to be fair, very similar to Max Verstappen, went all the way to lap 38 on the hards and then pitted on the mediums. Norris, because, well, I mean, yeah, he just couldn't get past, could he? Lap 37, the lap before Norris, and he would have got, I honestly believe, ahead. He would have got ahead of, potentially even Lawson and Tsunoda even, had he, let's be fair, had McLaren sorted out that 2-second pit stop, which is kind of sad. Hamilton, very similar to Verstappen, it seemed to be on the hards for lap 36, then on those mediums. He came out behind Leclerc, he caught up quite quickly. Leclerc let him go because Hamilton seemed to have, the delta. I mean, he had a lot newer tyres, like, 16, 17, I think, yeah, laps newer than Leclerc. And on the mediums where Leclerc was on the hard, so they're going to be naturally faster. He let him through. Now, the plan was with Hamilton and Leclerc, Hamilton was going to let, because he couldn't pass Norris, I thought at one point he caught them really quickly. Leclerc the plan was for Hamilton to let Leclerc by again, but he apparently timed it wrong. Even Leclerc came out and said, it's only what is the difference between the 8th and 9th? It's okay. Yeah. These are not the big points, understandably, but someone didn't tell Max Verstappen and Perez that in Brazil. 2022 22, but anyway, or 23, but anyway, I digress. I think 23. I'm not sure, maybe. Anyway, I digress. So we've got, so moving on from that. When you look at the bottom, it's like kind of like a really similar story. There was only the one strategy was mediums to hards to mediums, stopping about in the lap 20s or the late teens, and then onto the hards, and the hards went a lot longer. So there was nothing fantastic, obviously, about the strategy there. But the average gap to Verstappen, and this is in terms of the lap times, was interesting because Russell was doing good. But when you look at Sainz, he really did earn that podium. So Russell, just shy of 0.3 a lap. And when Russell came out behind Verstappen, he didn't really lose that much time, which makes you wonder, had Russell and Verstappen started together, he probably would have got more of a race. Just not to take away from Carlos Sainz, because the work was done in qualifying from Carlos Sainz. And he was only, 0.379 average off, so he's faster than Antonelli, both Ferraris, wasn't he? I mean, that is quite impressive. Tsunoda as well. Obviously, the slowest being the Alpines. Leclerc and Hamilton very, very close in pace. 7/10 or 7.5 off Max Verstappen. That's still going to make for upsetting viewing. But the saving grace, like Fred Vasseur said, most people was the reason for this big discrepancy. Most people were stuck behind a slower car at some point because of the weird qualifying. Most of the time. So that kind of describes why there was, maybe a bigger gap to Max Verstappen, who once again did a fantastic job. So the standings, as you can see here, Max Verstappen led all the way. George Russell, when we follow the line, he overcut everyone. He overcut quite a few people. I mean, from there, starting fifth, kind of initially dropped down a bit, but then he made his way. Kimi Antonelli passed him, and you heard a swear, didn't you? Lewis Hamilton got a good start, and then made a bit of progression, but not that much. Lando Norris, he lost to Leclerc, didn't he, on the restart, and then had let's be fair, was there, and then had that absolutely awful pit stop that completely ruined him, didn't it? Not good at all. So he got up here, and here was the pit stop, straight down there, the 4.1 second pit stop, which was absolutely not good whatsoever. So these are the pit times. Average McLaren 21.93, quite high. I mean, the second highest after Aston Martin, but the Aston Martin one, that was the 10-second one, I think, which didn't help the average time. With Fernando Alonso, he also got a jump start, distracted by Oscar Piastri, which was a bit sad. The fastest people were the V-Carbs. Well done them. By 0.02 of a second to Red Bull on average, but most people in the 20s until you get to obviously Alpine, McLaren, and Aston Martin. Yeah, so, really, really, really close. I mean, you're looking at, 0.75 of a second covering both V-Carb, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Sauber, Williams, Haas. So the fastest being 20.25 by V-Carb, and then 20.94 by Haas. So really, really consistent there, guys, on that front. Now, here's the interesting thing. Let's look at the top speeds. And Norris isn't really that bad. You look at Behrman, 361. Top speed, 357 for Bortoletto, then 357 for Albon, 354 for Lando Norris. That will be, with the DRS and stuff, etc. So he had a higher top speed than some of the other cars, but then it makes it even worse, and I don't understand why he couldn't pass people. It was difficult, but I said going in, there were question marks about McLaren's top speed, and I think potentially there still are. I mean, he must have had a hell of a toe for that, because I'm not 100% sure how top speedy that really is. But there we go. I digress. That's pretty much. I think that's pretty much all of our data there, which we do. So thank you very much for that. Now onto the, let's be fair, the drivers. What I would like to do is quickly just get into who finished where. So let's just remind ourselves before we get into our driver rankings who finished where. So Max Verstappen won. We got George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Andrea, Kimi Antonelli, Liam Lawson. That's your top five. Your podiums, obviously, fantastic from George Russell and Carlos Sainz. Then we've got Yuki Tsunoda in 6th, Lando Norris, oh dear, in 7th, Lewis Hamilton 8th, Charles Leclerc 9th, Isaac Hadjar in 10th. And rounding out the top 20, we've got Gabriel Bortoletto in 11th, and Oliver Behrman, Alexander Albon, Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso with that 10-second penalty thanks to being distracted by Oscar Piastri, Nico Hülkenberg 16th, Lance Stroll 17th, 18th is Pierre Gasly, 19th Franco Colapinto, and whoops-a-daisy for a certain Oscar Piastri. Let's get into our ratings. So, the Azerbaijan ratings. Who was a hero and who was a zero? Well, the biggest zero of the race, I don't think you're going to be surprised, was a certain Australian Iceman by the name of Oscar Piastri, who not only did a bad start, a jump start, braked, and then pretty much went to the back. Okay, fair enough. Maybe he felt he needed to, but then became desperate enough to yeet it into the wall in a bit of a panic on that first lap, and he put his hand up to it himself. We all make mistakes. Michael Schumacher used to say, I allow myself one big mistake a year. Oscar Piastri has had two, but let's be fair, he's leading the championship for a reason, because he has had such a fantastic year. In a fantastic car, I might add, but still. So next up, we've got another man who got himself a 10-second penalty, I think, against Colapinto on, let's be fair, a move that really wasn't on. Yeah, you got your nose in there, but that was kind of it. What was going on with that Alexander Albon? Sadly, I've not been able to find any footage. Next up, we've got Lance Stroll, simply because he is Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, he finished, 17th? Yeah, I know, qualifying was difficult for him. In spite of not having a 10-second penalty, Fernando Alonso still beat him. Yeah, that's not really great, is it? Next up, we got Colapinto. So, Colapinto, okay, he finished 19th, screwed over, if I'm really honest, by a certain Alexander Albon, but still, yeah, he made it into the wall in qualifying, and that really set him up for what was a very average race. And speaking of average, again, Alpine, it's probably, if I'm honest, it's probably because of the car, but he finished 18th, not good enough. I'm sure if you looked at shots of Flavio Briatore, I probably wouldn't want to be having dinner with him if I was either of those Alpine drivers, more so because of their qualifying. Hulkenberg next. And yeah, Gabriel Bortoleto finished 11th. Hulkenberg finished 16th. I guess that's all you really need to know about that. Nico Hulkenberg hitting reverse. He, it kind of, I know I've mentioned it before, but ever since that first podium in Silverstone, he's kind of hit the backwards gear and is like, okay, let's go backwards. Now I've achieved my life dream of a podium, and we're done. So Esteban Ocon behind Ollie Behrman again, just lacking that. Yeah, Esteban Ocon 14th, Ollie Behrman 12th. Didn't do. Yes, he hit the wall in qualifying, didn't he? And got a very crabby car, pun intended. Having said that, he still beat his teammate, which I think is the least. And the last of the losers, I'd like to say, obviously, this man here. Okay, I need a drink because I'm struggling. Lando Norris. You get a chance in qualifying to get a good result. You don't. Okay, the conditions are difficult. You say you tried your best, etc. You made a mistake. Fair enough. So then you start. Average start. Don't want to take too many risks. Your teammate has crashed, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be really good, and then you fluff up the restart and let Leclerc past you, which completely ruins your race. So that's why he's there. Yeah, should have been better. Now the winners. Gabriele Bortoleto, simply because he beat his teammate 11th till 16th. He is having, really cracking. Alonso again, in spite of that 10-second whoops a days, which we can kind of understand, he still beat his teammate. Yes, he finished 15th, but I see that overly as a positive. Isaac Hadjar. Okay, Isaac, you may have been beaten by your more experienced teammate at this rate, but you finished 10th. So, what was a difficult weekend? Wasn't wholly bad. Lewis Hamilton, okay, got screwed over, really, by Ferrari. Maybe a tiny bit himself, but mainly by his Ferrari team in qualifying. And he had a really, really good start. The pace, very on pace, really, really close with Charles Leclerc. And not too bad. Yes, he finished ahead of Leclerc. But is that because Leclerc gave him, basically, let him go, play the team game? And Leclerc was just, he's just slightly more solid in the race, if I'm honest. But it was ever so close, wasn't it? And once again, Yuki Tsunoda. Okay, you didn't beat Liam Lawson, fair enough. But you still finished 6th, which is a really good result for Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull in 2025. Can't argue that one at all. Next up, okay, now this is going to be slightly controversial, but this top 5, I'd like to see as like a top 5 podium, really, because they all did fantastic. Now, surprise, surprise, I have put Max Verstappen as 5th in this top 5. You can make a case for any of these people being men of the race. The only reason why is he did the job perfectly. He was never pressured. He got a good start. He got a good restart. And what helped really was Carlos Sainz not quite being fast enough, and he was able to manage the race without any pressure. What I'm really saying is he did a really good job, but it was the easiest race of the year that he won. Easy. Next up, George Russell. He was really ill on Thursday, couldn't make the media day, didn't do many interviews. Once again, he came down with some respiratory disease. They didn't say it was COVID, but still, I think he did a fantastic job, which is why he finished 4th. He finished 2nd overall. I think there's some people that, considering a bit of stuff, maybe did just a smidgy better than him. But as I said, you can class any of these top 5 as your number 1, and I probably wouldn't argue about it. But next up is Kimi Antonelli. Now, coming into this race, he was under pressure. Not only did he qualify on that second row, out qualifying George Russell. Yes, George was a bit ill, but he kept the race pace. He kept. I think it was Liam. He kept Sainz not a million miles away. He was looking like you could get another podium again potentially. I think absolutely amazing stuff from Kimi Antonelli when you think of the amount of pressure he had coming into the race weekend with doing all these mistakes, and it was really, really good to watch. I was so happy for Kimi, and I was so happy for this guy here, Liam Lawson. He proved the naysayers wrong. I appreciate one swallow doesn't necessarily make a summer, but he did amazing. Liam Lawson, yes, he finished 5th, but he was up there. What is it? He was up there on the second row, started at 3rd. Amazing job on a track where everyone else, including World Championship leaders, were making mistakes. He didn't, and it was fantastic. And the man of the race, first Williams podium, Carlos Sainz, who was 2nd through a good part of the race, keeping Max somewhat honest if Max were to make a mistake. But any guy that makes James of our smile as much as he did is going to be a friend of ours. Absolutely well done, Carlos Sainz. You are the man of the race for us in 2025 for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. You didn't, in the race, you didn't really put a foot wrong. You did amazing qualifying where people were going off and making mistakes. You did not, and you got the absolute maximum out of that Williams. So yeah, well done, Carlos Sainz. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it to the end, this is 37 minutes nearly. That's ridiculous. I think this is the longest race review we've done for what was quite a boring race. My mouth is now going very dry, but I just want to say, if you made it to the end, that is amazing. You're as crazy as us. Give us a subscribe if you're not subscribed. Although you watching this is more than enough, and making it to the end, clearly we are not worthy here. Thank you very much. But until then, we'll speak to you soon. And above all else, stay safe.